Welcome to the season 7 finale of Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. We made it another 10 episodes. So we decided for our final episode of season 7 to talk about something near and dear to our hearts that no one else, or at least barely anyone else, ever even saw, which is the Loft of Wisdom. So we were roommates as juniors, correct?
Correct.
Sophomore
Active juniors.
year, I roomed with a senior and got one of the kick-ass rooms in the whole house because he had a high pick as a senior. Juniors tend to have pretty good choices for their rooms in the house, and we managed between the two of us to get one of the 4 worst rooms in the whole place, which are called corner doubles. At a certain point, I was president of the fraternity and you were vice president of the fraternity, and we were living in that corner double. We were living in like the smallest room in the house. So that must have been at the end of that year, junior year, I guess. I don't remember
Yeah.
exactly how it worked. It was a tiny little room, and the best way to fill the space was to use either bunk beds or even better to build lofts so that the beds were raised and you could put desks or dressers or piles of laundry or whatever underneath the loft. So when we found out we got screwed with our pick and the best we could do was a corner double, we had to figure out if we were going to loft the room. And we did. And what I don't recall is whether the 2 lofts were already in there or whether we got them from someone like a senior who was moving out or something like that. Because I feel like we put them together, but I'm not 100% sure about
Two things. One, since you were president, we should have issued an executive order to give us a better room. Damn it.
We could have just taken over the whole family room on the first floor by
Yes, and then
edict, by
and we
XO.
and we could have kicked out people we didn't like just because. Um,
Exactly.
no, I'm pretty sure we did build it. I have vague recollection of that, mainly because you probably did all the work because I'm the worst handyman in the world.
Well, I don't think either of us are very handy with tools or lumber. So I would assume we got Andy to help us at some point. But I don't remember where it came from. I know we didn't build it from scratch. And I know it was an existing loft, but it was unpainted, unstained 4x4s and 2x6s, built with wood and then with a bed frame, like a wire bed frame, basically bolted into these 2 lofts. And the beds were both the same height, and they were really high too. That's my other recollection is that you needed a ladder to get up there, or we climbed. I think in one of them we climbed on the dresser to get up there somehow, but it wasn't. I mean, the top of the mattress had to have been at least 5, 6 feet off the floor.
Easily, because I feel like it was above my head.
Yeah, it was almost that high. And I remember that first semester of that year, I got injured playing football. I got a hip pointer, which is a miserable injury to get. And I literally could not climb up into bed for like 2 weeks. I had to sleep on the floor, like on sleeping bags and pillows on the floor, because I could not climb up because it was just way too high.
Yeah, I think I got injured that year too. I was drunk and I tripped over you.
It kicked me in the hip.
And then I was fine though.
So we had them set. They were kind of like they were each on a
L-shaped.
wall. Yeah, it was L-shaped, each on a wall, like the corners, the heads, where your head would be on each bed was kind of by each other, legs going the other way. And then below, one of them was a desk, and I think we only had one desk in that room.
Yeah, I
And
didn't use
below
one.
the other one, maybe a dresser, probably a dresser or something like that.
Yeah.
But very early on, like first party is my recollection. The first party that we threw at the house, we got drunk and I think we were drinking in the room like before we went downstairs or something like that. And we were staring at the lofts, which are all just bare wood. There was nothing, like I said, unpainted, unstained. And as is usually the case, I don't know whose idea it was, but one of us thought we should write stuff on these lofts. And we decided to just write our favorite quotes from movies or lyrics from songs or quotes from books. And for the life of me, I couldn't say what the first quote was, but we did it that night. And then pretty much anytime we heard a great quote or saw, saw a movie that had a great quote or listened to a song, whatever it was, one of us would go sprinting to the room to write it down with a Sharpie on the loft. And by the end of that year, that school year, we had filled like every empty space basically had some kind of quote written. And I don't think we let anybody else write them. I think it was either my handwriting or your handwriting. I don't think anyone else was allowed to write a quote there. So if they had one and we thought it was good enough, we would put it on because we would pick the spot for it. And those two lofts became what we called the Loft of Wisdom. And we were very proud of that title, very proud of that name. And there must have been 100 quotes up there by the time we moved out at the end of junior year.
Yeah, and I feel like we must have had a pretty strong editorial board because all the times we were super drunk, chances were like, hey, I got a great idea. Some really stupid ass stuff could have gone up there, but I thought it was pretty well cultivated. That's a word.
Yeah, I am sure that there were some bad ones. And the other thing is I vaguely remember there were a couple times where we wrote something at night, and then when we woke up in the morning, we crossed it out or we scratched it out because it was either too stupid, which was usually the case, or sometimes it just was completely unintelligible, and we would get rid of it.
So that was our editorial board, was sandpaper.
If I'm not mistaken, after we first started podcasting, and I think we were still trying to think of a title for the podcast. And if I'm not mistaken, we did discuss calling it Loft of Wisdom. And then we realized that would really mislead people if they came across that on Apple Podcasts, because they'd say, oh, the Loft of Wisdom. And then they'd listen to us and think, that's the most misleading title of a podcast I've ever heard. The most false advertising you could find.
Yeah, instead we went with this obscure theory that somebody had about whether an album was good or not. So that didn't confuse anybody.
No, but I will say it is so obscure that it makes us sound much more intelligent, I think. Calling it the Loft of Wisdom would have just been, as I said, false advertising, just intentionally leading people astray. Better to confuse them.
That's our idea. We confuse them with unwisdom that sounds like wisdom.
Unwisdom.
Unwisdom.
Again, not a bad title for a podcast. I know we talked about this off air. I found it almost impossible to remember specifically what we put up there. And I think that just goes to show how drunk we typically were when we would put phrases up on the loft. Although I do know there were times where stone cold sober, one of us would go running up to the room. But for the life of me, I had a lot of difficulty trying to remember specific lines or specific quotes that we put up there. Do you have any that you remember were actually on the original Loft of Wisdom?
No, I mean, you put a couple on there that jogged my memory, but I don't want to steal your ideas because I don't remember any of them. Like there's certain movies that we watched that you feel like we had to have quoted from. The Hitcher, I'm trying to remember if there's any lines from The Hitcher because we watched that movie so many times. We had to have had it memorized. And yeah, but then I start misplacing stuff. Like I almost said I Love It, but I think we're living in the apartments.
Yeah, I think that was too late in our history for his music to be there. The one quote that I think we both agree was somewhere on the Loft of Wisdom, probably in one of the prime spaces, and probably one of the very first things we ever wrote on there was a quote from Highlander. It was the villain in Highlander, that giant, scary dude who had the safety pins across the scar in his neck. And I want to say it was about 3/4 of the way through the movie, he screams out, "It's better to burn out than to fade away." And there is no doubt in my mind that was on the Loft of Wisdom, and also no doubt that we thought that was the coolest thing ever when we wrote it.
And there's a song that I should know this. I know it's a classic rock song that also quotes that.
Definitely, it came from a song, but for me, that quote will always be from the movie, even though I think you're right. I think they stole it as well. Because he was dressed as like a punk rocker, and that was the whole point, I think, was for him to seem very like rock and roll.
And then Tapeheads was one of our early, like, not obscure, but not overly popular movies that we love to quote. One of my favorites probably wasn't on there because you had to have the visual to really appreciate it when she's in front of him, and then and he's like, she's talking all this stuff, and all of a sudden he's like, whatever, as she's
That's right. He's got his hands all over her dress.
yeah.
Yeah, so the one that I thought might be have been on there, it was Ivan, the character Ivan, John Cusack's character. At one point, he's yelling at Tim Robbins, who's being very negative about their, I guess, on Ivan's idea to set up a video production company. And he says, "Negativity festers in you, man. How'd you ever get to be my friend?" And I know we said that to each other 100 times if we said it once. I don't know if that made it to the loft because, again, the timing of it may not be right. I know we watched that movie 1,000 times with Joe Pay when we lived in the apartment on Syracuse after we got out of school. But I do think that we caught it right at the end of junior year, and
Yeah.
I guarantee you, is if that's the case, I would have run straight to the loft to write that down because I thought that was hilarious when he said it.
And the other one from that movie was the what, FBI agent or whatever. The I
Yes,
theorize.
yes. I feel like I saw that up there, and just I theorized with three dots after, with the
Yes.
ellipsis after, because that's another one that I know we said to each other a million times. And I know we quoted songs, and just as I am now, back then I was a huge fan of Springsteen. Which is like 30 albums ago, but the album and the song "Born to Run" were very important to me back then. They were on the mix cassette tape that I listened to before every game with my Walkman. I used to listen to that album. I think to your regret constantly, even if it wasn't a game day. And I'm pretty sure that I wrote at least one line from that album. And I think the one that I wrote, or at least the one that sticks out to me now, is just amazing poetry, if nothing else, is Wendy, let me in. I want to be your friend. I want to guard your dreams and visions. If there's a Springsteen-esque line, it's that one. And I feel like that was up there, even though I cannot confirm for sure that was the specific Springsteen line. I'm sure there were a couple of them up on the loft.
Yeah, and I wasn't quoting songs as much back then because I was listening to hair metal, and I think I'm wondering if they even knew how to rhyme stuff. But no, I'm sure I quoted something.
I feel like there was a King's X lyric up
Yeah,
there. I feel like there was
there had to be a
probably a
Night
White
Ranger.
Snake, Night
There
Ranger.
was.
Yeah, of course. But I couldn't remember specifics either.
So a little more recent ones that we feel like would have been on there. And it's dumb, but I'm sure it would have made it up there. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball from
For
dodgeball.
sure. If you want a line that kind of represents what we would have done if it existed back then, that would definitely have been front and center on the loft. I'm sure of it.
Because, I mean, it's the lines that you quote over and over again. And then there'd be some obscure ones. This one I had to go looking for, but I remembered it after I found it. It sort of represents me a little bit. You know, when life gives you lemons, just say fuck the lemons and bail. So that's from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Paul Rudd's character. Haven't seen that movie in a while, but those types of lines, if they would have just sort of stuck out to us and we would have thought they were hilarious, we would have come running upstairs
I
and
saw
said,
that. I saw that line on the outline. I was like, I don't remember Paul Rudd in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And right when the way you said it, that's when it clicked with me. He was the surf instructor in that movie, right?
yeah.
Oh God, he was great in that movie. I can't believe I didn't remember that was it.
We've tried to semi recreate some quotes that may have been on there and then dabble with some newer quotes that could have been on there if we still lived together, which would be weird. But we are going to add this as a segment in season 8. Haven't decided if we're each going to do a quote or if we're going to take turns. That's still to be worked out in our, really formal production meetings that will start right after this season. But we also, for those, 7 or 8 of you that listen regularly, if any of you remember any of the quotes, we ask you to send them in to us and try to recreate the Loft of Wisdom. And then we will build upon it on our website on a new page called the Loft of Wisdom.
Yep. So we'll have a new regular segment. I think it would be awesome if we would get people to email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or however you want to get in touch with us through the website. If you've got a good quote and it passes through our very, very difficult editorial board and review, then we will put it up on the website and we will discuss it in future episodes. So in order to kick off our new segment going forward, I think each of us has a quote that we will put on the Loft of Wisdom at www.thirdsonginpodcast.com. And hopefully the quotes we pick will be a little more thoughtful and a little less, I don't know, moronic than what we did when we were juniors in college. But I want to give you credit because the quote, the lyric that I am picking for the very first is from the singer-songwriter Jeffrey Martin, from an album and a song we've talked about before. In fact, I think we might have just talked about it last episode, which might explain why it's fresh in my mind. But the song Sad Blue Eyes is one of my favorite songs ever. You were the one who first brought it to my attention. And the opening line in that song is, he grew up in a house in the valley with a daddy who was one long cigarette. And that is somehow the most evocative line maybe I've ever heard in a song. Like, I can picture that scene in my mind, even though it almost sounds like nonsense words at the end. I mean, who is one long cigarette? The whole verse is, he grew up in a house in the valley with a daddy who was one long cigarette, and his mama walked out on a Friday night with a man that she just met. So it's just, as a lyric, it tells you everything you need to know about the lead character in this song. But the first 2 lines where he describes his daddy as one long cigarette, to me, is just amazing poetry, an amazing lyric for a song. And every time I hear it, I kind of stop a second and just realize just how good it is. So that's my first choice for the Loft of Wisdom 2025 is from Sad Blue Eyes by Jeffrey Martin.
I thought you were going to steal my choice because you started talking about one that I've talked about before. No, I went with a line from the Drive-By Truckers, and it's from their classic Southern rock opera, the song Zip City. It's a little longer, but I'll read the whole thing just because it's great. The last couple lines are the ones that stand out to me. So, maybe you're just a destination, a place for me to go, keeps me from having to deal with my 17-year-old mind all alone. Keep your drawers on, girl. It ain't worth the fight. By the time you drop them, I'll be gone, and you'll be right where they fall the rest of your life. I just love that line. It's this girl that he's in love with. It's about not being able to, consummate the deal. Her dad's constantly giving him a hard time. He just isn't. And it reminds me in some ways of where I grew up, because so many of my friends are still home, and I went off and did other things. And I do think that their worldview is a little different. It's just yes, it's sexist in its own, or about sex, by dropping your drawers. But that whole idea is, I'm not staying around here, and you'll be here the rest of your life. So good luck.
No, there are very few people who write lyrics better than Patterson Hood. Yes. And I assume he wrote the lyrics for that song.
I'm assuming. So our first 2 to add to the Loft.
2, both from songs. My guess is that we'll both end up pulling from a film here or there, and perhaps a book. I keep thinking that I want to go back and look at some Cormac McCarthy stuff and all kinds of other authors that I think really, obviously know how to turn a phrase. But that is both a discussion of the Loft of Wisdom, circa 1989, six, probably
Six.
seven in that
Yep.
range. And in our newest version, which will start with season 8, which will be coming up in a couple weeks.
Right on.
So to finish up season 7, however, it is time for us to give our final year recommendations for season 7. We've been recommending pop culture from the aughts all season, and in our season finale episode, we need to make recommendations from the year 2010. What do you got?
I got a kids movie, dude. I'm going with Megamind.
Nice.
It's directed by Tom McGrath, voices Will Ferrell, Jonah Hill, and Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is hilarious. He's the traditional superhero who's just bored, doesn't want to do it anymore. And Megamind, big blue head, is the villain and wants to find something more out of life than just being a villain. And I remember going into it thinking it was going to be dumb as hell. So 2025. So my youngest would have been really young, and then my middle son would have been 13, something like that. So they wanted to go see it. I went, and it was way funnier than I thought it was. And I probably watched it 4 or 5 times afterwards. It's one of those that has both adult humor and kid humor. I've chosen so many of these that this is going to be our last pick for a year. I figured I'd go with a similar theme, which was kids' movies that can appeal to adults. So Megamind is my choice.
That is a Polachek family favorite, by the way. We've had conversations, probably not even all that long ago, about whether they would ever do a sequel to Megamind, because
Mhm.
apparently there was talk about it. I don't think it did very well in the theaters because it seems perfect for a sequel. There's just
Yes.
anything they could have done anything going forward. And like you said, the cast was really funny. The cast was it was really a well cast animated film. That is one of my daughter's favorite movies back from when she was like a preteen. And I love it. I think Will Ferrell's hilarious in that. As you said, the comedic surprise though is Brad Pitt because his character of the infallible superhero is just really really funny. It's really well done, really well written. That is a great movie. And as you said, I don't think you need to be a kid to appreciate it.
What'd you go with, man?
My choice is also a film, maybe a little more serious than Megamind, but no less entertaining. It is a kind of a heist flick, a crime flick that was directed by and stars Ben Affleck. It's called The Town. I love this movie. It's based on a novel that I have not read called The Prince of Thieves by Chuck Hogan. It is very. It's an action crime thriller, is what it is, and it is. Well, I think one of the best movies that came out in 2010. I do think it got some nominations for film awards. Outstanding cast. Ben Affleck stars in it as the leader of this gang in Boston. Charlestown is actually where they're from, which is kind of a suburb of Boston, and it's known for having criminals. Like it's known for all kinds of bank robbers that came out of that particular area. Jeremy Renner plays Ben Affleck's best friend who did prison time, basically took the rap for something that Affleck did back when they were kids. John Hamm is in it, plays an FBI agent. And it is just really, really well written and it's really, really well acted. And it's one of those movies where you end up rooting for the bad guys, the bank robbers, but it's done in a way that Affleck's character feels heroic by the end of all of it. It's got, speaking of being, speaking of the Loft of Wisdom, it's got some great, great lines. At one point, John Hamm is talking to Ben Affleck's old girlfriend, and they're sitting at a bar, and she won't give up. She won't rat out her boyfriend because she's also from the town, and they've got this code, of course. And he uh, he looks at her at one point and he goes, we're a national organization. And he just has a bunch of really throwaway lines like that they're very smart, they're very funny. I think one of the most famous lines is Affleck comes in to talk to Jeremy Renner, who's like just sitting watching TV in an apartment, and he says, "Hey, I need your help. It's going to get violent. You can't ask me any questions, and we got to go right now. And Jeremy Renner's his character is James Coughlin, I think is his name, or Coughlin. And he looks up at him, and all he says is, "Whose car are we taking?" And the whole thing is with Boston accents, and it's just a great, great movie. If you haven't seen The Town, it is my very highly, highly recommended selection for this episode, directed by and starring Ben Affleck from 2010.
Nice choice. That's one of my favorite scenes ever. It's just a
Oh,
great scene.
so funny, so funny. And John Hamm is great. There at the very end when and this is a spoiler, but Ben Affleck kind of escapes John Hamm. John Hamm goes to his car, which is a clearly marked FBI vehicle. Well, not clearly marked, but an obvious undercover FBI vehicle. And under the windshield, there's a folded up piece of just a piece of paper, and he takes it out and he unfolds it, and in marker it just says "fuck you." And John Hamm looks at it, kind of shrugs his shoulders, and a cop walks by him and he hands him the paper and goes, "This is for you." And it's like it's not a cop who's a character in it at all. He's just an extra who walks by, and he doesn't say anything. He just takes the note and he looks at it and walks away. It's really funny.
All right. What's that take us to? Post facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post factos where we correct things we said wrong, complete sentences we didn't finish, and just give you updates on things that we've brought up in previous episodes. I will start because I've been given an update on this book for it seems like the entire season. As we are recording this, I am 83% through the Buffalo Hunter Hunter. I will say this, I'm getting into far enough, obviously, to understand the seriousness, the themes he's trying to write about, because it's highly praised for how it places Native American culture in American culture. There's a great line on the cover of the book that's like, I'm an Indian who can't die. I'm every American's worst nightmare, something like that. But last night when I was actually reading, and the night before, I was hitting some themes. There's these times where, yes, he can never die, but there are times where he's so injured that it's year after year. It takes him years to recover. And I think that's the purpose of the theme of a vampire, because from the time he starts being a vampire to the end, you start seeing the massive decline of his tribe. So it's reflecting back on how his tribe is being destroyed. And then the vampire who turned him into a vampire came from the old world over to the new world. So it's that theme of, whites, Europeans coming to America, and destroying everything in their path. And basically, a lot of what his reflections are on how he can't be Indian anymore. He can't be Native American because he's feared by them. He can't have children, he can't eat, he can't participate in any of the rituals of his people. So it's a really powerful book framed around a seemingly odd theme, which is a Native American vampire, but getting into some really cool stuff. I'm really, really appreciating it, but I'm still not done. So fuck you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest we might want to change the name of this segment to the Buffalo Hunter Hunter update as opposed to post facto.
Don't even ask about Cryptonomicon.
I was just going to say, actually, it should be the Cryptonomicon update because that's what you started with, and I assume that one has not progressed any, but I still think it's hilarious.
Not a bit. So I think you might have a couple updates.
I do. These probably fall into the category of nobody really gives a damn. But I misspoke when I said my wife Dawn was a junior when we started dating during my interview episode. Excuse me, I said she was a senior and she was in fact a junior. It was second semester of that academic year, so she was finishing her junior year. And not that it's particularly important, but in my own history, it is in family history, I guess it is only because we didn't start really seriously dating until after she won the national. Her team won the national championship in volleyball for Washington University. We kind of were going out before that, but we didn't really start seriously dating until after that. And then it was her senior year that I was out of school. We were living together, you and I, with either Doug or Joe Pay, depending on the point in time. And that's when we kind of got serious. And I think I was responding to that question when I was trying to lay everything out, and I got my chronology messed up a bit. And then we have our first listener submitted post facto piece. It also relates to a prior episode. Well, obviously relates to a prior episode in our description of one of our friends and fraternity brothers throwing lobster after senior night. And I will let our listener and former guest Andy Armstrong take it from there.
Andy Armstrong from the Post Facto Desk regarding episode 2 of season 7, The Beer Curve Part 4. Tom and Chris, you talked a lot about senior night from our senior year and couldn't remember where we went to dinner. I remember because I was handling Dottie at the time, and Dottie was our cook, and Dottie was the source of that lobster that was sprayed all over the room in your story. And Dottie loved to cook lobster, but she didn't really know how. And after 30 minutes of boiling this lobster, she told me it simply wouldn't get tender. A little disturbing spending that much money on lobster to have Dottie cook it until it was leather. But that's what we had. So, slight update. We didn't go out to dinner. We had dinner at the house and Dottie's fine cooking. So, there you have it. There's your post facto update for the Beer Curve Part 4.
Well, if that's the only mistake that you made, Tom, that would be like perfect for this episode because you actually spitted it out without any problems.
Yeah,
spitted it.
So we're going to do a season 8, huh?
Yeah. We're just trying to lower the bar a little bit so that when we push out season 8, it's going to look fantastic.
We're all about lowering expectations at this point.
I've learned the lower the expectations, the better I look. So that does take us to staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
Staff picks is when Tom and I highlight new releases, things that are either scheduled to come out or have recently come out, or, and Tom has opened this door, something that we've only very recently discovered ourselves, even if it's a little bit older, and we've used that clause a couple times during our episodes. This time, I think we both have new stuff. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of goes hand in hand with your recommendation of Megamind earlier. I'm recommending an animated series, actually a season of an animated series that is definitely and was definitely created for kids, but that I just kind of fell in love with when my kids were watching it way back when. The Disney Channel, Disney XD, is coming back with 10 new episodes of the show Phineas and Ferb. That's supposed to drop on June 5th of 2025. And I became unreasonably excited to find out that there was new Phineas and Ferb. I texted my kids. They don't seem to give a shit. But I'm like, I'm watching Phineas and Ferb. So when my kids were little, I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but it is just this fun show about two half-brothers who get into shenanigans, who have a pet platypus named Perry, who is actually secretly a secret agent. And it's truly a kid's cartoon, but it's really well made. I think every episode they do, there's a song, like an original song, and it's kind of set up to be like a music video with the characters that are there. But by the end of that series, when it stopped, which it has to have been 7 or 8 years ago, all of the characters from that show had kind of just become very familiar to me, my kids, my wife. And we would watch, they came out with a movie at one point. Disney XD came out with a feature-length film of Phineas and Ferb. and we watched it like it was an LA premiere. We just thought it was fantastic. So I must say I'm really excited for the new season of Phineas and Ferb, which is coming out in early June of this year.
Very nice. I never got into Phineas and Ferb, so
Oh,
that's all on you. That's on you, man.
it's definitely on me. I love
I think it's a good choice, though. I went back to music, a band that I was excited to see that they released new material. I haven't listened to them in a while, and they have several albums since the last time I listened. It's the Pine Hill Haints from Alabama. They have a new album coming out, and as is the thing to do, they've released 2 singles off of it. The album's going to be titled Shattered Pieces of the True Cross. I have a theory about the title, which I'll get to in a second. The 2 songs that they've released are Drinking with the Prince, which is a little more upbeat and somewhat typical of their style. Much slower and a little different of a sound is a song called Loser, which, sort of typifies what this episode has been.
it.
But there's a great quote. There's an album, I think it's from 2007, called Ghost Dance. It is from 2007. Nice work. And I love listening to the album. Not every song, but almost every song starts with 2, 3, hey, and then they jump right into the songs, which are mostly punk, bluegrassy type of stuff. There's a great review that describes them. I'm going to read the line because I think it's really awesome. One can imagine the two main songwriters and singers, its kids, having raided their parents' diverse album collection of Appalachian music, early country blues, folk, pop, calypso, crooners, and early rock and roll. Then, after absorbing that stuff and perhaps being temporarily distracted by punk and ska during the rebellious teen years, setting their energies to the study of various 19th century music such as field holler, spirituals, Civil War balladry, Creole, and ragtime. No joke, you hear all of this music in them.
Holy
So
shit.
they are just incredibly diverse in their sound, which is fun to listen to because it is a different sound than I was used to in 2007. They're definitely worth checking out. Their new album, Broken Pieces of the New Cross, or the True Cross, is that what I said it was?
Shattered Pieces.
Shattered Pieces of the True Cross. And I theorize that the cross is the music that they listen to, and their music is so diverse, it's the shattered pieces all over the place.
Very nice. Very nice.
There you go. Because I don't see anything religious in their titles.
No.
So I don't think
Yeah, that's the first thing I would have thought of is that maybe it was a kind of sacred music.
Yep. And it might be, like I said, that review definitely highlights the fact that they're all over the place. So
All right, now we're up to the final playlist picks for season 7. Every season we each pick a song to put into our long-running playlist. It's a companion that you can find on Spotify, on Apple Music, YouTube Music, etc. By the end of this season and by the end of our picks here this episode, we will have 20 songs on the season 7 playlist. We ask that you look for it, listen to it, share it, and also let us know what you think. We try, in general, to pick songs for the playlist that reflect the theme of the particular episode we're in. I came up with a song that I think does that, kind of vaguely anyway, which in this episode, if I could do something vaguely, I think I'm winning. I chose a song by probably one of the best lyrical songwriters, period, at least American, Lyle Lovett. His album Pontiac from 1987 is one of the first Lyle Lovett albums that I got to listen to, and it caused me to go back and listen to his older stuff, and it caused me also to buy every album he's ever put out since then. He's an amazing songwriter. He's so funny. He's so smart. And on Pontiac, there's a song that is titled "She's No Lady." And what's funny about that is "She's No Lady" is a direct lift. It's a direct steal of an old punchline. I'm not sure. I think comedians have been using that punchline for. I think Henny Youngman may have been the first one to say it, but it's the lyric is "She's no lady, she's my wife." But what he fills in around that kind of old chestnut of a line is amazing songwriting. It's an amazing love story. aimed at, the woman he's decided to spend his life with. It's a great, great song. It's funny at the same time as being kind of very emotional. And I just like the way he took this old punchline and turned it into what at the time and even today to me still feels like a very contemporary song and just a funny, loving tribute to a woman that he loves. So that'll be on our playlist. It's She's No Lady from the album Pontiac by Lyle Lovett.
Great choice. One of my favorite songs, one of my favorite albums. Just a really great choice. Nice work. Nice way to wrap up playlist. I went in a similar direction, but a band, there's two reasons I chose this. I love the song. I think it's very clever. I've tried to listen to the other stuff by the band and don't like it as much. Maybe I'll find something that I do. But the song is My Name is Death by Red Wanting Blue, which is one of my favorite titles for a band. And it's just a guy personified as death. There's some great lines. And the other reason I chose it, I will quote in a second. But my favorite part of it is, I don't think I'm all work and no play. I just got a knack for taking people's breath away. It's not to say exceptions can't be made. When the Stones wrote me a song, I cut them a break. And I can't help that I'm dressed best in black, even better than the late, great Johnny Cash. And I shot more men in Reno than he ever did. It's just a nice, playful song with some, I think, great lines. And my favorite is saying, hey there, fellas, my name is Death. So when you see me coming, better hold your breath, because I'm your last breath. I'm your sweet retreat. I'm the baddest motherfucker you will ever meet. So
that is good for a Loft of Wisdom song. That I am betting pretty much everything that if that song was around when we were writing stuff on the Loft, that would be front and center.
Exactly. And if it says motherfucker, I'm likely to enjoy it. But I also figured that's a nice way to close out our season.
I agree. So, Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. You can email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com, and we urge you to do so. Let us know what you think of this episode, of our prior episodes, of our playlist picks, and let us know if you have any interesting or funny or poignant quotes or lyrics that you would like to see on the Loft of Wisdom in Season 8. Follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please rate and review us. Give us all your motherfucking stars. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music.
And also check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. We list all the recommendations we've made. There's links to the podcast, to our weekly blog. And then for season 8, we'll add a page called Loft of Wisdom, where we include all the great quotes that Tom and I come up with and any that you submit to us as well.
So as we said, this is the finale of season 7. We have every intention of presenting to you as season 8. And as a matter of fact, we're very excited because we have a very special guest in episode 1 of season 8, which will drop on June 23 of this year. We're going to take a week or two break, and then we'll be back with one of our Americana music idols, Matthew Grimm, formerly of the Hang Dogs. So we plan to start out with a bang. And we are looking forward not only to Matthew, but some other guests next season, including a sculptor here from the Joliet area, as well as a musician/cartoonist, which I think is the first of those we've ever talked to.
And don't worry, Tom and I won't be special guests next season.
Well, I think we've proven in this episode that we probably should talk maybe a little bit less.
I agree. All right. You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening. Post facto when
God, this is awful. This is the fucking worst. This is not just normal bad. This is like record-breaking bad. I have fucked everything up from the very beginning of this. I'm going to edit out the bad shit, and this episode is going to be 7 minutes long.
And it'll be all me talking because
I can't fucking speak. I can't think. Oh, God.
It's okay. It's been It's been a rough 7 seasons.
Why don't you just restart the post facto and I'll keep my mouth shut.
That sounds like a fantastic plan.
You do it.
Hold on, let me find the song first. You talk while I look.
You talk while I look. What did I do?
That could have been another title for our podcast. We should say that this is like every other episode. Tom doesn't have anything good to say.
Wow, that hurts. It does.
Right.
It does ring true, but that hurts.
We probably should start talking like for real
We
instead of
should.
having all the talk not be real.
Yeah, well put. Not sure this is the kind of finale that we were hoping for. I don't know. This is certainly not the episode where people are going to be like, you know what? I want to come back for next season.